why wouldn't you use something as powerful as AI to give you an edge? Why wouldn't you use that to your advantage? Because if you don't use it and your competitors are using it, they have an advantage over you.
Welcome to the AI for Creative Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm Kira Hug, co-founder of the Copywriter Club, and on this show, my co-host Rob Marsh and I focus on helping you stay ahead of the curve. We'll show you how to use AI to maximize your creativity, simplify your work and life, and reinvent your creative career so AI works for you, not against you. Join us as we explore the intersection of AI, creativity, and career. If artificial intelligence is starting to feel overwhelming, that's understandable. It feels like it's everywhere. Keeping up with all the updates can feel time-consuming. It can even be a distraction from our actual work. But what if AI could actually free you up to be more creative and impactful? While copywriters and creatives utilize AI to produce more content, there are loads of different ways we can use it in our businesses. John Mulry, CEO and founder of E5 Agency, joins us today to discuss his AI journey and how he leverages AI to amplify his unique skills and copywriting framework. In this episode, John breaks down some of the advanced ways he automates and streamlines his business. We also dive into some of the scarier, more frightening ways AI can impact us right now. But before we jump into that interview, this podcast is sponsored by AI for Copywriters and Creatives. It's the course we developed to help more than 200 copywriters, content writers, and other creatives learn how to use AI as a creative partner in their businesses. Once you've been through it, you'll be able to confidently use AI tools in your writing, in your research, and your strategic thinking without losing your distinctive voice and style. This course includes an updated list of over 100 of the best writing tools, which continue to change, so we continue to keep it updated. It also includes 5 different modules that help you understand the basics of generative AI and ChatGPT, and dozens of over-the-shoulder demonstrations so you can see how to use tools in action. And at the end, you'll have an opportunity to be certified as a prompt engineer, which is just another easy way to demonstrate your new AI abilities when talking to clients. You can get started with this course by going to thecopywriterclub.com/AI4C. Okay, let's jump into the interview with John. All right, so I'd like to start, John, with the moment for you where you're like, this AI thing is going to be bigger than I thought, and I need to change what I'm doing or do something differently. What was that moment for you?
So initially, when like ChatGPT and all this stuff started coming out, my thoughts were like, I don't think so. And I was like, no, I don't think it's gonna. A lot of people were playing around with it. A lot of people were sharing some prompts and sharing some of the output from that, and I was like, I don't know if we're there yet. And then I started to dig in a little bit more, and I started to actually use it myself, which I think a lot of people haven't either talk about it or they haven't really got their hands dirty with it. And it's really when like my first level with playing with it, my initial preconceived ideas came true. I was like, oh, this isn't really that good. But then I started to like interact with it more, and I started to, feed it more information and feed it like the frameworks that we would use ourselves anyways, rather than just kind of type in something random. And that's when I started to go, wow, okay. And I remember I was driving down to my mom, so that's about a 90-minute drive, and I had just stopped digging into it just before I left, and my brain was buzzing all the way down that I had to pull in halfway down the motorway, take out my phone, and to go back into where I was, because my brain was just like, this is crazy. This is way more powerful than I ever thought before. So like I was literally on the side of the motorway on ChatGPT on my phone, pretty much getting it to write like a full marketing thesis from start to finish based on like the frameworks that we would use, say, in E5. And I was just, my mind was completely blown away. It was still rough and ready and everything else, but it was just like, I was so giddy. And that's when I kind of knew, okay, for this to get me to stop in the middle of the motorway, to pull over, stop driving, there must be something going on here. So then after that, I just started digging in more and more and more. And that was obviously just from the ChatGPT side. Then I started finding all the other areas of where we can bring in multiple multiple areas. And then I went to that event, the original AI Summit event in Las Vegas in the end of March, start of April, and like that kind of tied in a lot of the extra tools that are available to me, and that then I started to see the bigger picture of what we could actually do. That's not just about getting it to the right messaging and everything else. There's actually more going on here, and that kind of opened up the floodgates even more.
So I mean, there's a ton of stuff we can cover in how you're using AI today, but I want to go back to that for those first prompts that you were writing, or that first back and forth, in order to get the marketing argument. Obviously you're doing more than just the, I need an email that says this, or I need a marketing argument for this kind of product. Like, what kinds of data inputs, information were you putting into the prompts so that what you were getting back was making you go, wow, because I think we all had that moment where we're like, okay, it's writing an email and it's 80% there, and I can rewrite it, and make it better. Or, okay, I get, it's kind of a fun thing to play with, but to get a wow response like, okay, this actually changes my job, is a very different application from what most people are still using tools like Claude, ChatGPT, whatever, are getting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it goes back to what I would normally do is if I was putting a campaign together myself, or if I was putting together an ad campaign for a client. It always starts with the audience and what they want, what their desires want, what it is that they're trying to achieve, what the things that they've tried, the things that they've failed at. So I started with like doing that. So I started with feeding so much information about audience and playing around with different things of how I could feed it. If I fed it this little bit of information on the avatar, if I started to expand it out and start to create multiple avatars, and like I always start with I was starting with a kind of a bank of knowledge to then begin to build prompts from there. So it all started with information on the actual avatar and the audience, and then what I started to do is I started to see if, well, what if I could even fast track that information on the audience by getting ChatGPT to actually do the research and actually pull the research and actually put together the avatars, because it's one of the most important things that we do. But so many marketers, so many business owners, when you say market research and do avatar research, they're just like, oh my God, I'm not doing it, because they gloss over. So I developed that really in-depth prompt, which is the my kind of starting point for everything, which it creates avatars based on the 5 levels of awareness and the 5 primary desires and the 5 primary pain points. Is kind of a really kind of condensed way of talking about it. So then from there we get so much information back. And yeah, surely we don't know how accurate the information is, but it's a starting point that we can use. And it's about as accurate as what we would come up with ourselves. Because anytime you do market research yourself, it's never an exact science. And we are, guesstimating to the best degree possible, unless we're speaking to like thousands of customers and we can congregate or consolidate all of that data. But when we're doing research on something in market that maybe we're not so familiar with, or a market where we have a little bit of information, it's never going to be an exact science. So I started to compile that data, and then the output that the say ChatGPT, which is what I was using, was producing, and ChatGPT 4, the output that was producing was just it was just the way I seen it was like it was just giving me the implementation and speed of implementation more so than anything else. That was just fast tracking everything else, because then every other prompt after that uses the previous prompts, and the like uses the avatar as its base, because like you guys knows as fantastic copywriters as I mean, everything stems from the audience. And if we start if you go into say ChatGPT or Claude now and you say like you said, Rob, write me an email or come up with an ad headline, or I need titles for a YouTube channel, or I need content ideas for this, it will give you endless amount of content ideas, but it's not starting from your audience's desires and their pain points and their and what's really keeping them up at night and everything else. That's what's the most important, because you can put out as much content as you want, but unless it's actually going to resonate with your target audience, it's not going to make a difference.
Could you just talk through that specifically, like that process you just talked us through? I mean, it doesn't have to be every prompt, but what you put in to ChatGPT to get out the desires and build that avatar, like was something that you actually worked on.
Well, I can read out part of the prompt if you want. I can just pull it up quickly here if you want, so you can get an idea. And then for your people listening, I mean, if they want access to that initial prompt, I'd be happy to share.
That's amazing. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
So it's give me 5 customer avatars for the offer, and the name of your offer, whether it's a paid offer, whether it's say the name of your webinar if you're doing say a lead gen, the name of your lead magnet if you're doing kind of lead gen to a lead magnet, or whatever the case may be. Then create one avatar for each stage of awareness as described in breakthrough advertising. These are unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, most aware. Then I give a quick explanation on on who the target market is. The target market is blank. So whatever the target market is, mums age 55 and over, and their kids have left school, for argument's sake. The offers website is, and I put in the website, it's a $37 offer in the mummy niche that helps mums get fit over 50 or whatever the case may be. That's just an example now. Put the avatar in the following format: stage of awareness, name, gender, job, annual salary, and then we go into a personal profile, a psychographic profile, a pain profile, a desire profile, their shopping behavior, their wants, and a three-dimensional profile. Now, within all of those different profiles, there's subheads, and then I just give it a little bit of a kind of a word block at the end to say, make sure each avatar is at least 500 words. If you need more space, just, this was back before you could hit that continue generating button inside of ChatGPT. So it's like, if you need more space, just continue on with the next prompt. So then from there, over the space of roughly between 3 to 5 prompts or 3 to 5 outputs, you would get all 5 avatars. And then I would organize all that information into a table, because obviously, well, maybe not obviously, a lot of people don't know that ChatGPT can organize information in tables. So then I would organize it into a table, and like that alone gives you so much information that you can work with in terms of potential ad ideas, potential content ideas, potential headlines and bullets based on their desires, their profiles, and everything else. And actually, when we launched our internal AI offer, basically the sales page for that offer was essentially that avatar information just put on a sales page in a slightly different way. Very little else was changed, and that offer was like one of the highest converting offers that we've ever promoted, which is crazy when you think about it. But it just shows you the power of when you dial in messaging to what your market actually wants and what their
And how
desires are.
much?
But I'll share the exact prompt if
Yeah,
people want to.
that's amazing. How much back and forth do you then have? Because obviously, when we use it, you don't just want to take what it gives you first. Like how often do you push back and say, okay, that was pretty good, but could we dig in a little bit deeper on this particular point? Or is that good enough where you're ready to say, okay, now let's talk about leads and headline ideas?
So you wouldn't necessarily jump directly from the information it produces to, okay, now let's give me headline ideas and stuff like that. I mean, you could, but usually I'd use a couple of extra steps, and sometimes I'm happy with the output. Sometimes, like if I don't know the market as intimately as say a marketer would know, I'd like to go and verify some elements. I'm not going to verify everything, but I'm going to verify some elements by going. So like this is a quick hack that I've only started recently using in the last few weeks, but it's been really, really powerful. Is what I would do to verify the information in the past is I would try and verify it manually. So I would take a look at some of let's say the top 5 books. I would look at the reviews on Amazon of those books, and I would see if there's any language being used in the reviews that is similar to the language that's used in the avatar profile. Now what I can do is I would like copy and paste all of the reviews as much as I could copy and paste, and I'd post it into chat, and I'd say summarize these reviews based on anything got to do with beliefs, anything got to do with desires, anything got to do with pain points. And would I create a table from all those reviews, where normally you might have to sift through 200, 300 reviews and do that manually? It can be done in a couple of minutes with a few prompts, using the same prompt over and over again. You might be able to do, depending on the length of review, you might be able to do 25 to 50 reviews at a time. And like that information that gets pulled out, you just kind of cross correlate between what your avatar profile is saying, and if there's similar things in there, you know that you're pretty close. If there's not, if it's way off, maybe you need to go back and do that step one again.
And just to clarify, you're talking about looking up the book reviews for the top books that your avatar would read and pulling the voice of customer from those reviews, right?
Yeah, so say for example, in the personal profile, the list of things I'm looking for is top 5 favorite movies, top 5 favorite books, top 5 visited websites, top 5 social media influencers, top 5 Google searches, top 5 visited YouTube channels, and top 5 downloaded mobile apps. And the reason why I'm doing them is because they're all potential audiences that we can target in, say, Google and YouTube. Possibly some of the influencers will be able to target on Facebook, but this is, all those top 5 things essentially gives us around 35 to 40 potential audiences we can target in Google and YouTube in terms of the campaigns that we're running. So, say for example, the top 5 visited websites, we can create URL affinity campaigns where, let's say, the top one of the websites was, let's say, the copywriterclub.com. So we'll be able to URL affinity audience for that and see if that audience resonates with the message. And it just gives us a lot of arsenal, and it just eliminates a lot of guesswork, and it just helps you gets this information quicker. So then, let's say for the books, what we could do is the top 5 favorite books, whatever books are listed, to verify how accurate the avatar is. I just check maybe the top 2 or 3, go over to Amazon, check the reviews. What I was doing, like I said, was checking this manually to see, is there anything that the reviews are saying that kind of relates to the avatar, so the desire. So maybe it was a book on weight loss that the reviews might say, no, this book was super easy to read and I've been struggling to lose weight for years. And if the avatar said something like, struggles to lose weight, blah 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 blah, I know I'm kind of on the same, and I know I'm pretty close with the messaging, so I can be comfortable in that the information is accurate enough.
Are there other checkpoints, verifications that you use? I think that's a really good one, but any other examples?
Not really. I mean, like, a lot of it is, I try to be like as intuitive as possible. Sometimes you do get output that's kind of similar across different things, and you don't know whether that's how accurate it is. And again, it's not an exact science. So, like, what I'm looking for is something close to the mark that I can work off as the next step, because the avatar is only that initial step. But if you can be comfortable that the pain points and the desires, they're usually bang on. They may need a little bit of massaging. You might need to go, if the primary desires, if they're too kind of like general, I might ask them to dig a little bit deeper and go on from there. But that's generally it. Generally, what I've found is that it's the output has been, once you feed it enough information about the target market, the offer, and everything else, what it produces back is a lot better.
So before we move on to some of the other ways that you're using AI, processes and all of that, are there other things that you're doing as far as writing content or creating strategy that you're using AI for outside of what you just walked us through?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, is there any particular area that you'd like to drill into?
Personally, I'm always interested in strategy and just like thinking about my business and what kinds of products I can create, or even book writing, that kind of stuff. But I mean, I imagine that our listeners probably go from total beginners using this stuff to people who are looking again at ways that they can create AI tools and use them in their business. So I think it's a really broad range.
Yeah, so I think one area that I don't really see a lot on, there's a ton of information out there in terms of getting AI to produce content. Where I don't see a lot of information where it's really, really powerful is getting AI to edit your content, or to examine your content, to critique your content and improve your content. Like, there's a lot of ways that we can do that. And just, like, say for example, really superficial example is right now, like, in terms of what we're doing from a Facebook ad point of view for our clients, a big part of what's really working from a copy point of view in Facebook ads right now, and it's not the only reason that things are working, but it's certainly elevating the copy to get that attention a little bit more, is the use of emojis. And trying to insert emojis into copy can be really annoying, because you have to, find the emoji you want, copy it, go in and paste it, and blah 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 blah. Versus you can just copy your small piece of copy, put it into chat, and say, insert emojis here where appropriate. And like 2 seconds later, the exact copy is produced, and you have a nice selection of emojis in there that's going to be attention grabbing and just going to elevate your copy a little bit more. So things like that. Other areas where you might say, take a piece of copy and paste it into chat, and then like put across what you were trying to achieve with that piece of copy, and ask for feedback. Or you could ask it to critique the copy for verb use and for persuasiveness, and let them know what the goal of this copy is to X, Y, and Z. Please critique this copy and highlight the how well it demonstrates the use of verbs, how persuasive it is, and any potential improvements you could make. You could also run some SWOT analysis on the copy. You could also, there's so many different things, and I have a bank of different things that I would go through that like you can feed your copy into it, and it'll critique it, and every single time it's just going to make that copy a little bit better. One thing you'd have to be careful of is that you don't say take your initial piece of copy and then pass it through 20 different critiques, and what you might end up at the end is like this Frankenstein version of your original copy, and you don't really want that. So typically what I do is I take maybe 2 or 3 critique elements, like say something like the verb use, like the something like a SWOT analysis type thing or something like that, and just let the output and see does it elevate the copy or not. And then something else that you could do to really speed up your process with your copy is actually formatting the text. So you can just take like so a lot of copywriters might just write their copy in a Google Doc, and they may format it as they're going, or they may not. They like generally, me personally, I wouldn't. I'd do all that formatting afterwards. Potentially even do the formatting inside of the funnel builder, like ClickFunnels or Kartra, or whatever the case may be. But what you can do is you can actually get the ChatGPT or Claude, I think, could do it as well, is where you format the copy with like proper headlines, subheads, bullets, and everything else. That stuff is a time saver, and it still allows you as a copywriter to have your essence and have you're not using ChatGPT to like completely change it, the voice of your copy, but you're using it to fast track the things that you're probably going to be doing anyway, like the formatting, like editing, like um, increasing the persuasiveness by the use of verbs and everything else. That's something that can be done super, super quickly and can elevate the results of the copy without you having to do it.
Do you worry at all about sensitive information when you're using ChatGPT or any of the AI platforms, especially when you're working on research or working with clients' information? Like that's something that makes me really, really nervous at this point, and it has held me back from using some of the tools with my research methods.
Yes and no. I mean, I do in terms of obviously we don't know where this is all going in the future. At least in the short term, the tools I've been using are pretty clear on the information put in, like not to put in any pertinent information. Don't share any information that you wouldn't otherwise want public. Now, what that exactly means, I don't really know because they don't actually tell you what that means. Maybe they do in their privacy policies and their terms of service and everything else, but I mean, I haven't got into the weeds of actually checking that out. What I do make sure is I don't put in anything like really private or anything that I definitely don't want shared or definitely don't want in the public domain. But other than that, I mean, I think I we don't know where it's going to go in the future, obviously, but I think for at least for now, I think we're safe enough that as long as we don't put anything in there that we don't want shared.
So we can't find your credit card numbers, John, if we go searching.
Well, if you want my credit card, you can just ask for it, Rob. That's fine.
So let's talk also how you're using different AI tools to do other things in the business. So not creating content, not creating copy, or even necessarily the strategy, but how are you using it to speed up processes, make yourself more efficient, just accomplish things that weren't getting done before?
Yeah, so I've been using AI in conjunction with what's called RPA, which is robotic process automation. And essentially what robotic process automation is essentially using stuff that you would do over and over again. It's just getting bots to automate that. So there's a number of different ways that you can do that. There's some for example, there's it's if you take like an everyday task. So let's say an example I gave in a presentation that I gave at Top One recently when you were there, guys, is the idea of creating headline test ads. So one of the things that we do for clients is when we're running creatives for them is we want to test which headlines are going to perform better, and that can be a very time consuming process. So what we can do by using RPA is speed up that process by potentially either writing the headlines ourselves or potentially leveraging something like AI to write the headlines. And I can share a prompt in a second to do that. And then using the output, we can use something like Canva, which has an AI component and has a bulk create component, where it will create multiple ad images based on the initial output that we feed it. So rather than us have to, so let's say we were doing a 21 headline test, instead of having to manually create 21 different headline images inside of Canva, which can be time consuming, not super time consuming as if you were to do it in something like Photoshop. It's definitely a lot faster, but we can make it even faster again by using RPA. But they have a simple feature inside there, which is like a bulk create, and it will just produce or 21 headlines in seconds instead of what might take us, an hour or a couple of hours or whatever the case is. So that's one element. Then we're using RPA then in terms of like alongside AI. So we're using it in some advanced ways as well. So like the way I look at it is there's a couple of different levels. So that level one would be using it for simple tasks like that, where we're using it just to kind of speed up some simple processes that we're doing. Other areas of where we use RPA is where we might combine, say, something like ChatGPT or something like Claude with something like Google Sheets by using either. I think now you can do it in Zapier, but I've been using Make to use. So like Make is a tool similar to Zapier. I think it has a lot more functionality. I think it's a lot easier to use as well. And using something like, say, ChatGPT and Google Sheets, you can come up with, let's say you were to populate something into a Google Sheet. You had two tabs in a Google Sheet or two columns. And in column one, you had ad ideas. And in column two, you had, potential headlines. So what you could do is instead of if you're anything like me, I would write a ton of ad ideas into my notes app on my iPhone. If I come up with an ad idea, I would go in and write it down. So rather than just leave that there and maybe it'll get lost in the ether of our phone app or whatever the case is, we could go into our Google Sheet, write down the ad idea, and then the minute I input it into the Google Sheet, it'll link up with ChatGPT with a preset prompt to automatically start creating headline ideas for that ad idea. So every time you update the sheet, it will tell ChatGPT okay, based on this input, give me an output. So we have to state what the output is already, or state what the output is at the beginning when we set this up through Make, and then every single time there's a new record in that sheet, it will produce whatever the output we want. So then you can use that for ad ideas, content ideas, to write a lead for a sales letter. You could use it to do SWOT analysis on a business idea or an offer idea that you have to what you want to come up with. Let's say, I'd love to start a new podcast on AI. So then, like, it would automatically go and run SWOT analysis on your idea. We'd love to launch a new product related to copy, and then it would do SWOT analysis on the product for copy. And it's just stuff that you might manually do as part of your offer creation process or product creation process. You can use things like RPA just to speed that up. Then you can get super advanced. So like we've been using RPA to actually create full campaigns or full ad creatives, and then to get to feed it into the campaigns. That's super long-winded, but like essentially with the likes of Zapier and the likes of Make, being able to connect with OpenAI, which is the API side of ChatGPT, it opens up so many more possibilities in terms of what you can do from an automation point of view. I know some people are actually creating full-blown websites that are fully, not just skeleton websites, but fully populated with content and continue to be populated with content, using the likes of something like Webflow to host the website and to host the pages, and then something like OpenAI to actually produce the content, and then something like Midjourney to produce images. So, and you can kind of stitch all these together with an RPA tool like Make or Zapier, or there's a couple of others, and then it'll just produce the content automatically without you having to actually go in there and manually do it. So it's like we're using it a lot to minimize those steps and minimize stuff that we're probably automatically doing anyways, and then we can just use RPA to speed that up.
So I need to have Make, Zapier, and OpenAI to do what you were talking about.
No, you can have Make or Zapier,
okay.
so one or the other, and then you'll need your OpenAI API key. So you'll get that by inside of the OpenAI dashboard. You can request your API key, and depending on when I requested mine, it took like 4 weeks to get it. I think it might be quicker. I think it might be quicker now. That was back when ChatGPT was like they had a surge of new users and everything else. I've read somewhere that the actual usage of ChatGPT has gone down dramatically in the last few months. I think I don't know what it's gone down exactly, but I've read that it has gone down dramatically. So maybe it'll be quicker to get the API key now if someone hasn't already got it. and then you just link up your API key with Zapier or with Make. And then the reason why I like Make is it's very visual. So it's kind of like a drag and drop of what you want it to do versus Zapier. While Zapier is amazing, Zapier is probably a lot more popular than Make, and it has a lot more users than Make. I find it a little bit clunky when you're creating your quote unquote zaps.
Yeah. And can you break it down and make it even more simple? Because I feel like your level one is still like level five for me. So is there a level zero where for someone who's has not ever used RPA, but they're interested and they want to just test it with something really basic? Is that the most basic example that you shared with us, or is there something another starter we could use?
I could probably have explained it a little bit better. So basically, like essentially, RPA is automating something that you would do a lot. So if there's something that you do, some repetitive task that you do. Let's say a repetitive task is, let's say, onboarding a new client. So you'd onboard a new client. You might have them fill out a questionnaire, or whatever the case is. And in that questionnaire, they might have input fields where it's like, tell me about your business, tell me about your offer, tell me about your audience, and et cetera, et cetera. So then what you might normally do then is you would take that information and you would put it into a Google Sheet, just so you have a record of it. So then we could automate that. So using Zapier or Make. So that's just a simple example. And there's no AI involved there yet. We can attach AI in a second. But let's say, for example, that when someone fills out a form, that form, their answers automatically creates a new Google Sheet, gets saved to your drive, gets labeled as their client name, and in this sheet, their information is listed beside the field. So we might have a sheet that says business name, offer name, price point, target audience, their pain points, or whatever the case is. So then whatever answers are in your questionnaire just gets populated in the Google Sheet. So then if we wanted to attach AI onto that, like that's a simple RPA there. Like it's a very simple robotic process automation. Something that you might do is, like I said, when someone fills out the questionnaire, you might manually be doing this right now. So you can just eliminate that manual work. So it might save you half an hour, it might save you 20 minutes, but it frees up a little bit of your time. So then we can attach AI to that by adding an extra step. So that when that Google Sheet is created and when those fields are populated, we can have a prompt in, say, ChatGPT if we wanted to. I'm not saying do it just because you can, but if it makes sense to have a prompt in there that might say, okay, do research on these five pain points. So what else is someone suffering from when they're suffering from these 5 pain points? So if one of the questions you asked was X, Y, and Z, or you could have it take my prompt and just insert your variables into the actual prompt. So remember where I said that the target market is X, and the price point is Y. So you could just insert your variables into my prompt and have my avatar prompt run automatically when someone fills in the questionnaire. So the process now becomes, instead of the old way of doing it will be they fill in the questionnaire, you go through the questionnaire manually and you input it into you create a new Google Sheet inside of your Google Drive, and then you copy and paste the stuff over, which is all manual. And then you would have to go away and start doing your research, which may take you a couple of hours, a couple of days, a couple of weeks, depending on how rigorous you are with your research. Now that process can be done the instant they complete the form with RPA. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. It's amazing.
As I think about it, John, I'm kind of combining what we were talking about earlier with this process. But the thing that I dislike most about customer avatars is because of the way that people do them, they're usually demographic information instead of psychographic information, the triggers that people respond to, the emotional words, whatever. And it feels like you could put in demographic information into a Google Sheet, tie it to the back end of ChatGPT or whatever AI engine you want to connect to, and have it send you back the typical psychographic information for a particular product or use case or whatever. So even if you're not able to get the research that you want to right up front, now you can lean on a large language model to start creating some of that. Like you said earlier, it may not be 100% accurate, but it's going to be 80, 90% of the way there, which is probably as accurate as you're going to get from mining Amazon reviews or Facebook groups or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that the bigger thing that I'd love for people to understand is like the goal for me with using AI and using RPA and all these things isn't for AI to completely do my job. It's for AI to speed up my ability to do my job. Because as we know, as direct response marketers and copywriters and everything else, is that money loves speed. And the faster we can get stuff, good stuff, I'm not saying the faster we can get crap stuff out, the faster we can get good stuff out and good stuff live, campaigns live, offers live, and messages out there to the marketplace, the faster we're going to get results. Whether those results are the results we want or not, that's a whole other story. But like the faster we can implement, the faster we can get results. And I think a lot of times people are sitting on their ideas, they're sitting on their information, and they're potentially sitting on a gold mine. But for whatever reason, they're stuck and they can't implement, they can't get going. And I think using AI, not to replace them, but to actually speed up their ability to get the results that they're hoping for, is a massive win for me. I don't think we're at the stage where AI is going to completely overtake things where it's like there's no human interaction. We may reach that in the future, but we're certainly not there right now. But what it does do is it enables people to get things done a lot quicker than if they were doing them on their own.
Yeah, and can you dig even deeper into that and your viewpoint, John, about why that's important? Like beyond making more money and saving time, why is it important? I imagine it is because if your competition is now moving faster, then clients expect a faster pace, and it just shifts the whole market and how we do we perform our services. So I guess why is this important to keep up with it and not just say I'm not going to play this game?
I think it's because, like, well, because of exactly what you said. I mean, because like there's a really strong chance that someone's competitors are going to be using it. And it was a question that was raised in a podcast interview that I actually recommended when I was presenting at Top One, which is the Mo Gado podcast interview on the Diary of a CEO. And I can't remember exactly in the podcast, but I think it was maybe three quarters of the way through. The guy, the Diary of a CEO host, asked him, "Should I be using it? Should I be using AI in my business, in my everyday life, and everything else?" And Mo Gadat, who's an ex Google X executive, who was one of the Google pioneers in the AI, and but then quit when he found out what AI was actually becoming and everything else, which is a whole other story. I highly recommend people check out the episode. I think it's called the Emergency Episode, Diary of a CEO. Highly recommend you check it out. It's a fascinating episode on AI. Will really help you think better. But when he asked him the question, "Should I be using AI?" The Mo's answer I thought was fascinating. He's like, "You're a super smart guy. You you're really successful in business. You're really intelligent. You're really well spoken, and etc. 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 Why wouldn't you use something as powerful as AI to give you an edge? Why wouldn't you use that to your advantage? Because if you don't use it and your competitors are using it, they have an advantage over you." That doesn't mean that if everybody's using it, there's no longer a competitive advantage, because everybody's going to use it in a slightly different way. If everybody just use it to produce content, and like, fair enough, there's no more competitive advantage. But when you use it to speed up your unique skills, because as a copywriter, you're going to have a unique skill, you're going to have a unique ability. You may be an email copywriter, or you may be a long form sales page copywriter, or you may be an ad copywriter, whatever the case may be. You've built up a certain level of skills, a certain level of unique skills, and you have a unique way of doing things. And AI has now is giving you the ability to fast track your ability to get more output and to produce more. So then you can potentially take on more clients. So you can make more money. It's not just about making more money, but if you're a one man band, or if you're a one man copywriter, and you're doing copy consulting, or if you're doing copywriting as a service, as an agency or a copywriting agency, whether you're a one man band or whatever the case is, there's a cap on how many clients you can take on, and there's a cap on how much work you can produce. Now, by using your unique skills and your unique framework for using copy, if you have one, you can leverage AI, so you can maybe take on three or four more clients. You can maybe, instead of writing a sales letter that might take you 4 weeks to write a sales letter, you might be able to get it done in a week. So now you can you can produce four times the content and actually generate four times the revenue for your business, which is not going to, in my mind, is only a good thing. It's not going to damage your business, because as long as you're still using AI and you're not having it produce less work than what you would normally do. You're just having it speed up the process that you produce your work. Well, then it's a
And I
win-win.
imagine for some people, it's not about doing 4 more or 3 more. It's about doing one in 1 week and being able to take 3 weeks off, or however you want to use that time, right? Yeah,
Oh yeah, potentially. I mean, like some people. I mean, we all know like that writing copy can be absolutely grueling and can be time consuming and can be a fruitless effort until you have it
yeah.
finally done. Whereas now you can have it done quicker. So yeah, you have the option. You can either take on more if you want to. You may be in a growth phase in your business where you want to, just do as much as you can, or you may be not in a growth phase where you appreciate the time back in your life so you can spend it with your kids, or you can go on vacation, or whatever you want to do. Yeah, and I think that's where I really see the power in AI right now, is not to, like, we know the example I shared where I created a fictitious crypto company. Maybe we'll talk about that in a second. But like that was a just I wanted to see what could be done. But my goal with using AI is not to have everything 100% AI created. My goal is to free up my time so I do have the options to either work less, or I do have the options to take on more clients.
So, John, as you look at the landscape of AI and you're seeing, okay, I see some of these things that are happening over here, or whatever, what is something that you haven't done yet, but that you're looking out there thinking, oh, that's the next thing that I want to try, or that in a month I think it's going to be ready to do this thing in my business. What are you excited about?
So what I'm excited about is combining AI with audio with video, because audio we're probably about 90% there with, like, say, 11 Labs and other companies like that. So 11 Labs, if people don't know, they you can, like, upload, say, 5-10 minutes of your voice, and it'll use AI to produce like multiple hours of your voice if you wanted to. So you could potentially, for any of your authors out there who wrote books on copywriting that haven't got an audio book, you could maybe upload the first chapter into 11 Labs, record it, and then upload the rest of your book in text form, and it will just produce the rest of your book in audio format, which is something you couldn't have done before. That's something that I want to do myself. I haven't gotten around to doing it yet. But then that's obviously going to be a massive time saver. It's not going to be 100%, or you might have to play around a little bit, but it's certainly going to be good enough for the likes of, if people wanted to put their book on Audible, or if people wanted to add the audio book version to their book funnel, or whatever the case is. That's one area that I haven't delved into yet that I want to. But the second one then is, which I think could be potentially bigger, but we're not quite there yet from a commercial point of view, is the AI video. So producing more video content. I think it's it's at the minute it's quite crap, to be honest. Like, just to be frank, I mean, there's a lot of AI tools out there that tell you that they will create video, and they will create video, but the majority of it is crap. It's clunky. It doesn't look good unless you're using like an animated version of yourself. So like, there's one of our examples. We're running an AI offer for them right now on ads, and the sales page video is an animated version of the guy who's running the offer, and it's like, because it's an animated version, you nearly forgive it that it's not as powerful as it could. But he actually plays it down in the video as well, so he draws attention to the fact that it's him and it's an AI version of him as well. So, but I think maybe in the next 18 months to 2 years, we might be in a position where you could legitimately have a video and you wouldn't know if it was AI or not. And like, that's both scary and um, pro- provides a big opportunity. But definitely the audio side of things and video side of things in the near future, I think is something to get excited about if people use it for
Of
good
course.
and not for evil.
18 months from now, the three of us won't even have to be here. We can just
I can't
upload
wait.
our scripts, and the podcast will be done.
No, Rob was asking me to record a bunch of videos
And
earlier, and I was like, can't you just get my AI avatar to do it? Why do we have to? But I guess we can soon.
Soon.
funnily enough, I was actually I was in London two weekends ago, and I went to the ABBA Voyage concert, which is all AI and
Right?
hologram. Get tickets to it.
What if I don't like ABBA? Yeah.
You will. You'll
I
like
don't know.
ABBA
I
after
don't know.
this.
I'll go.
No,
Rob,
no,
we'll go together.
I'm telling you, it's. But then also from the, like, it's holograms done with artificial intelligence and lighting and everything else, and it's like you're at an ABBA concert. The only thing that lets it down a little is it's still that, like, it's when someone is singing a song, they have so much emotion in their face. They're wrinkling up here. they're sweating and everything else. It doesn't have any wrinkles or sweat. But apart from that, it's like being at a
Wow.
live ABBA concert.
Rob, we got to do that.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I want to ask about, maybe this is the same question we're asking you, but I feel like it's slightly different. I wonder how you've shifted the way you think about your future career, what you offer, how you'll navigate your career in the future since, the moment you had, and yeah, how you just think about your future.
Initially, I've kind of gone through a little bit of not a roller coaster with this question, because it's a question that I've asked myself a lot. And initially it was like, everyone's going to lose a job. And then after, it was like, as I thought a little bit more deeply about it, and as I've seen it, is I think it's not necessarily, there will be a lot of jobs lost. A lot of, unfortunately, low skilled jobs will be lost and will be replaced by things like RPA and AI in the future. I don't know the exact statistic, but Walmart have come out and said that there'll be a certain number of their stores 100% AI based, which is really scary. I mean, Walmart have how many hundreds of thousands of employees or whatever the case is. So that's super scary. So there will be a lot of jobs lost. In terms of highly skilled jobs, like copywriter is a highly skilled job. Media buyers, highly skilled jobs. In terms of those, I don't see it. Well, initially I was kind of, okay, where's this going to go? Is are we all going to become obsolete? And now the way I look at it is that no, we won't become obsolete. The people that don't use this will become obsolete. My inkling and my understanding of where things are going and what I believe is going to happen is that it's going to be the people that use this to amplify their skills are the people that are going to strive and thrive in the future. The people that try just rely on their skills and bury their head in the sand when it comes to AI, they're going to fall behind. Will they become completely obsolete? Probably won't. I mean, they'll probably always, get by and everything else. But I think unless you're willing to amplify your message with things like AI and RPA, I think you'll get a lot further ahead if you do that versus if you just kind of say, no, I'm not using it. I'm a Luddite. I'm as good as I am. I don't need to use it. And, I think that's where things are going. I think it's those that use it will get ahead. Those that don't will fall behind. They mightn't fall completely behind. I don't think they'll become obsolete, but they'll certainly fall behind to the degree that their ability to maintain and grow their business may dwindle.
Yeah, it feels to me like there's an opportunity here that AI is actually creating at a higher level of thinking. Somebody at our retreat that you've mentioned, the top one, joked that it takes a 500-word prompt to write a 300-word piece of content, right? Like there's this. It feels like there's this emerging class of jobs or soon to emerge class of jobs where somebody has to say, yeah, this is good. Or, let's adjust the input or the prompt or the whatever in order to make it right. And then, like you're talking about, connecting up the different pieces together so that it will actually produce this. Like this is a skill that 2 years ago didn't exist. And, even prompt engineers that are, Netflix had a ridiculously high paid prompt engineer job, like $700,000, and Auphonic, was advertising for a prompt engineer at over $900,000 a year. Like clearly there's a demand for people who understand this and can help move it to wherever it is going. And I think that might be a place where a lot of copywriters can add a lot of strategic and just practical value.
Absolutely. And just quickly go back to, because what you said about it takes a 500-word prompt to produce a 300-word piece of content. And that's true. The only thing that joke fails to realize is that 300-word piece of content can be produced as many times as you want once the 500-word prompt is done. Once that's done, that's the kind of work I like doing. Do it once and use it over and over again. Versus like a typical example is people would run an ad campaign once and never run it again, versus running an evergreen ad campaign that you can run day in, day out, and it'll produce leads and sales. Do the work once, get paid over and over again. And that's the beauty of leveraging AI and your unique abilities, your unique skill set, is that it allows you to take those skills, take those abilities, and put them in a framework where you can use them again and again and again without the actual workload of having to be doing it yourself. So that's where I think the opportunity is. It's not that AI is going to be doing everything. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we don't. Things are changing so fast. Maybe 5 years down the line, we will all be obsolete, and we will be either sitting on a beach drinking pina coladas, or we'll be like well beyond the universal basic income that's potentially coming in.
I like option one better. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. But I think it's the going back to leveraging it to amplify your message, and reach your audience in a better, faster way. I think that's where the opportunity is.
Before we start, well, Rob, I'm surprised you haven't asked about what keeps John up at night. You haven't asked your question, so I feel like I need to ask
Give
the
me
question.
time, but go ahead. Yeah.
John, we like to ask just about the scary part of all of this, which we've hinted at, but what does keep you up at night? What parts of it still make you uncomfortable? Yeah, what scares you related to all of this?
I'll give you an example because it was a video that I seen, and some idiot took a video from Joe Rogan. I think it was a YouTube short, took his voice and obviously created an AI version of his voice, and then created a video where they had the subtitles of the video just close enough to his mouth so that you couldn't read his lips. And they started creating videos where they were having him say stuff that he clearly didn't say. And like that's the dangerous side of AI that really scares me, because people could legitimately end up in jail for that stuff, for doing for wrongly. I mean, I know there's fake videos of Trump out there, there's fake videos of Biden out there. There's like the people can potentially use that to create content that can get people into a lot of trouble, that can get people falsely accused of doing things that they didn't do, and obviously got to do with business, but from a scam point of view, and from a potential to hurt a lot of people financially, emotionally, and physically. You Because of that stuff, people can get in trouble. I've like, let's say for example, there was a video of you, Rob, saying very nasty things about a competitor. That competitor could lose their rag, drive in their car, drive to your house, and take out a baseball bat and go to town on you, when the reality is you've never said that. So that's you getting physically hurt over something else. And like that's a physical wild example. But to bring it back closer to home, people are already getting scammed every single day by idiots out there with spam and all of these crazy things. And I think with AI, there's going to be a lot more of that stuff, and it makes me sick to my stomach
Yeah,
to even think
that I
about it.
think is the biggest worry for me too. The grandkid voice that's been copied, and now you call grandma and ask for money. It's just the opportunity for scams is just so massive that I mean, I know there are the bigger world issues that we've commented on. A general AI that doesn't seem to value what humans value, those kinds of things. But in the short term, I think having images stolen, voice stolen, put together. I mean, it's one thing to copy, Joe Biden or Trump. They've got Secret Service protection. There's nobody here between me and Kevin Rogers if somebody says I said something about him, right? So maybe it's a good thing to be friends with all of our competitors in some way, but yeah, there's a big risk there, really big risk for fraud.
Hopefully, they're like the powers that be are trying to do something to clamp down on this, because like privacy is already a mess, and I think with AI, it completely goes out the window, and it's potentially really really scary. And like you said, it could be elderly people that are getting scammed. It could be younger people getting scammed by, you know, less than nice folks. Put it that way. I'll try and be as PC as I can. Um, and I like that. That really scares me. I know there's other stuff about, like, there's the bigger picture of, will AI take over and will we be slaves to AI and everything else. And I would read the book by Mo Gadot, which is
So,
Scary Smart, and he kind of talks about that a little bit more. And he talks about the three inevitables of AI. But for me, a little bit closer to home, because we see so many scammers and so many idiots out there taking people's livelihoods. And I think with AI, that those scammers could potentially have a leg up, at least for the short term.
You've mentioned Mo's book. I'll mention one other one that I read this year. It's called Life 3.0 by Max Tegmark. It's at the same time, it's both the most hopeful book I've ever read about AI and also the scariest, where he walks through
Oh, I must check
all
that out.
kinds
I
of
haven't heard of that
scenarios
one.
where AI could take over, run the economy, and there's good sides of it and there's bad sides of it. It's a fascinating look at intelligence and how it all works. So maybe a good 1-2 punch for AI books.
all right. So before we wrap, one kind of quick question. We like to talk about job losses, but let's also talk about new job opportunities. So I'm just wondering, John, if you've come across any ideas where you clearly couldn't take it on because you're maxed out, but you're like, this would be a great new job. Someone could take this if they lost their job, they could move into this role.
Absolutely. An RPA agency all day long.
Yeah. Okay.
Like doing robotic process automation for businesses, going into businesses, seeing what areas they are repetitively doing over and over again, and where RPA may have a potential fit, and just installing an RPA system in the business and getting paid a retainer for as long as they're using that RPA. And then when they stop using it, or when the retainer stops going, the RPA shuts off. And I think that could be a really, really strong business in terms of it has a strong value proposition to the business owner. It gives efficiency, gives speed of results, but also has a massive pain or disconnect, which is a benefit to the actual agency. So absolutely something along the lines of what the ins and outs of that might be. There's lots of different ways you could go about it, but definitely something along those lines I think is could be potentially the new agency in the next few years.
And I know we're almost out of time, John, but just one final question, and that would be, what should we have asked you about AI? Like, what are you hoping for somebody to ask you so that you could talk about it, or say something, that nobody's asking you?
That's a really good question. I would think at a basic level, I think AI is as good as the information that you give it. So if you were to ask me what's the one tip you would say to someone who is getting started with AI, I'd probably give a two-pronged answer, which is A, just get started and don't try and run before you can walk. Just get in there and start playing around with it because a lot of people are overwhelmed with it. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of different levels of expertise out there. And for the people that are maybe been exposed to it a lot but haven't really used it a lot themselves, just get in there and start playing around with it. I think I've always found the best way for me to learn is by doing. Yes, I love courses and I love learning, and I will always continue to go out there and expose myself to things like that. But I find that you intuitively learn yourself better when you get in and play around with it. And then just find a groove and like go from there. But then once you start to play around with it, once you start to get familiar with the actual platforms, like, and when I say platforms, I would probably even take that back a step and say platform. Don't try and learn Claude, ChatGPT, OpenAI, and all those. Don't try and learn them all at once. I've gotten really good at using ChatGPT. I have a access to a Claude account. I haven't actually used Claude at all because I think people can get bogged down by the, oh, I need to use this and I need to use that and all these different tools. Choose one and get comfortable using one. And then once you're comfortable using it, understand that the better you get at feeding it and training it and getting it to learn your way of doing it, the better your output's going to be. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to a question of what would my one tip be. There's probably 3 or 4 tips there, but I think that a lot of people out there right now, and Kira, you even mentioned it yourself that you're aware of AI so much, but you're maybe a little bit intimidated by all the different aspects you could use it with. Just start using it, and like it doesn't have to be perfect. I even got my father-in-law playing around with it there, and he was getting it to write short stories about people in our village, and it's like doesn't make any sense, but like in there and start to use it and just play around with the options, and you'll start to get intuitively better as you go from there because it is really overwhelming. And I think the reason why at the very beginning I dismissed it was because I was so overwhelmed with it. But then when I actually got in there and started playing with it, and I was playing with it at the beginning, there was nothing good coming out from it. It was just basically me messing around with it until I started actually applying frameworks to it. And then when you apply some frameworks to it, which is going back to what I said about the better information that you feed it, the better output you will get. So if you're, say, a copywriter watching this or listening to this, and you currently have frameworks that you use for writing copy for your clients or writing copy for yourself, see if you can start to train those frameworks to ChatGPT and see if you can start producing content that's maybe 70%, 80% as good as what you would do. And then you go in and take it the extra 10 or 20%. And then you have a piece of copy that you can stand behind that will get your clients amazing results. And it's freed up a lot of time for you to either, you know, have extra time with your kids and your family, or freed up your time so you can actually take on a second client or a third client in the same time frame.
Yeah, I like the baby steps approach. If you're working with a client, just choose one application per project, just one way you could integrate it if you're still figuring it out. So that's helpful, John. And where can our listeners go if they want to connect with you or learn more from you?
You can connect with me on probably the best way. Like I'm on social media, but I'm not on social media, if that makes
Just like
sense. As in,
us.
I'm not very active. So basically, the best way to connect with me is probably through email. And you can connect with me at john@e5agency.co, or you can go to e5agency.co and connect with me there.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Thank you to John for sharing his insights on using AI as a copywriter and creative entrepreneur. His framework for training AI with copywriting prompts was particularly fascinating and also demonstrates how we can use AI to elevate our existing skills rather than be replaced by it. If you want to see what John is up to in his business, you can go to e5agency.co. And remember, if you want to jump into our AI for Copywriters course, you can go to thecopywriterclub.com/AI4C. That is the end of this episode of AI for Creative Entrepreneurs, a Copywriter Club podcast produced by Brandon Burton. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please leave a review of the show on your podcast app so we can reach other creative entrepreneurs who are also interested in exploring AI. Or if you're catching this on YouTube, you could always like this video or subscribe to the channel or even leave a comment below. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.